Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Alex Harper, the founder of Women of Culture. For those who don't know me, we are a community designed to connect, inspire, and empower women through meaningful engagement with the arts. And I'm super excited. We're going to be speaking with Kay Healy today, who is a mixed media artist whose work focuses on the themes of home, loss, displacement, and resilience. So it's pretty pertinent for the time that we're living in right now. We may also have a cat guest on today, so that's always something to look forward to. But let me just have Kay join us. Oh, yep, we've got Izzy here too. You can see her head. I think Kay is getting on too. Izzy, hi.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Oh, you have a nice like green background, like greenery and window view and everything.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about the lighting, but it seems okay. I looked sort of like one of those murder mysteries or something before.
I was gonna say you look kind of like angelic, like you're floating in the...
I like
but,
really lights. I tried.
yeah, it's always tricky, but um, well, thank you for being here. I'm glad we're getting to chat. Are you in your studio or are you at home?
I'm in my studio.
Oh.
Is your cat over there?
Yes, yes. Sorry, I don't know if you saw her. Yeah, we've got a cat guest today. So.
I have a dog guest, but she's not allowed on the couch. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm in my studio. I'm in Philly. And I'm really lucky because this whole time I've been able to come to my studio because it's just me and my husband who share a space.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so this, unlike some of my friends, I've actually like showered and dressed and gone to work every day. So that's nice to have this separate space. But I'm glad we could do it today because I could actually be here and I can actually like show you work instead of just so.
No, that's awesome. Are you able to like walk or drive, or how do you get between home and there?
So yeah, it's just a 10-minute walk.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm actually originally from Staten Island, New York, and
okay.
my mom relocated to Manhattan, and I lived with her for a year after college there. And then I came down to Philly for grad school, and all my friends up in New York were like, "Oh, you're coming back, right?" And I was like, "You don't understand. I can like have a studio and an apartment and make rent and work a part-time job." Whereas the just like the hustle in New York was a lot more challenging. So yeah, I'm really lucky. We have our house just 10 minutes away, and we walk here every day. So.
Oh, perfect. Well, yeah, that was one of my questions. As you know, like I like to always kind of start at the beginning, and so I was curious, where you were from, and how you sort of discovered art. What was your introduction into making art?
Yeah, so I was surrounded by art because my mom is also an artist, and she definitely influenced me. Actually, when I was a kid, I was really adamant that I did not want to be an artist because it was really hard, and I was like, yeah, I just want to make money. And then I actually went to college, and I always like knew I had some skills that I just that had transferred to me from biologically. Like our hand is sort of similar. Sometimes I see the way that we draw, and it's like, oh, that's really weird that we kind of have a similar way of working. It'd be like when I see my grandmother's handwriting, and I'm like, oh, that looks like my handwriting. Or even like palette choices and stuff. But I really was actually more interested in music for a long time when I was in high school. And then I ended up going to Oberlin College in Ohio, and I was an art history major. So I could like write about art. I was really interested in art, but it wasn't until I was there that I saw some really amazing artist talks. Some really incredible people came out to visit and would, to just talk about their process. Andrea Zattel came. Actually, the one that really made the biggest influence on me was Pepon Osorio came and gave a talk. And he did this really amazing piece in the Whitney Biennial called Badge of Honor in, I think, 1995. And it was this piece where he was from New York, or he went to school in New York City. He was a social worker there, and before he became an artist. And he did this piece where he connected two people together. It was a teenage son and his father, who was incarcerated at the time. And they weren't communicating, they weren't talking. And so what Pepon did is he went to the teenager's home and videotaped him talking to his father. And then he took the video. This is before cell phones, 1995.
Yeah.
Probably earlier. Like, I think that's when the biennial was, or around then. And then he took the video to the dad and played it for him, and then recorded his response. And then he had this like conversation between the two of them. And he did this whole installation where you could watch the video. And I actually never saw the piece. I mean, I was in like 6th grade or something, maybe. So I wasn't going to the Whitney Biennial yet. But hearing him talk about it, I was like, whoa, you can do that with art. You can like connect these two people that, maybe were having some difficulty maintaining a relationship, and you can have this very concrete effect on people's lives. So I was like, oh, I think I want to do this.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I guess you had before that maybe had an idea of art being like just drawing or painting or something. Like, what kind of art did your mom, or does your mom do?
Yeah, she's mostly a painter, and I had exactly that of just, what every young person probably thinks of with art is just what you see in museums, which at the time it was painting, sculptures, more like social practice and installation art like came a little bit later. So yeah, I really didn't know about that until college. And even when I was studying art history, my concentration was architecture. It wasn't even like contemporary art or anything. So yeah.
Izzy really wants to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
It's so funny. She never sits on my lap except when I'm like on a Zoom call or an Instagram or something.
Whenever I'm trying to read the paper, my cat will be like, all right.
Just have a sense for how can I get in the way? Anyways, but no, that's interesting though, because I think that is like something that I can relate to as well, of like having, not, especially what you learn in school is definitely more like traditional. I don't know if that's changed at this point, but kind of not really learning so much about conceptual art usually from a practice or a say that again.
Oh, sorry. Definitely not in high school. Maybe once you dive deeper in college or something, maybe.
Right. Yeah. So then what happened kind of after you heard that talk? And did you immediately kind of want to create your own work, or?
Well, and I would say that part of that was also the requirement of my major, was that I had to take 2 visual arts classes as part of my major. Every art history major also had to take at least 2 art classes. And so that's why I even had to go to these contemporary art lectures. And it was a specific teacher named Susan Umbenauer, and she taught mixed media and I think she was just really supportive of me. I mean, I think most people can trace a teacher that was really supportive of them, that said, you know, you should, I don't know, just kind of gave me a little push and like, you could do this if you wanted to. So, and then also my mom was very encouraging, which I know not all family members would be, of like, oh yeah, pursue the arts.
Well, yeah, helps, I guess, that she was an artist, but she also wasn't like, don't do what I do.
Right, right. Which could, you know, could have been the case.
Yeah.
And so I took a year in New York and I just saw so much art while I was there. I took some classes at Hunter College actually, just to, I mean, they were so cheap because I was in city tuition.
Yeah.
It was actually cheaper for me to take classes at Hunter than it was to get my own health insurance, because at the time you had to be enrolled in school in order to be under your parents. Now it's like you could be 26 or something, but then you couldn't.
Right.
So yeah, I took all sorts of really great art classes there, like ceramics and installation and video art. And then I used the portfolio to get into grad school, and ultimately ended up here. So yeah, that was sort of my trajectory.
And so, grad school, you did fine art or studio art?
I did a really interesting major. It was book arts and printmaking. And
Cool.
I was interested in book arts because I liked that it was mixed media. You can really do whatever you want within the field. But it's also really narrative based, because most of my pieces, it's visual art, but there's usually a story that's connected to the work that I make. And so narrative has always been really important in terms of my motivation for making something.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense, actually. When I think about your work now, I'm like, yeah, I can see that. And did you, did you do book art or how did you find the medium that you now work in?
Yeah, so I should say too, there was a book arts class that I took at Oberlin, so it wasn't totally out of the blue that I applied for this medium. I never knew what to apply for when I was doing my applications. Like, I wasn't really a painter. I was making these weird ceramic pieces that I was like putting all over the city, or I was making like in between. I made a lot of canvases where I would do like sort of bas relief ceramics on top of them. They're horrible, and I would never want anyone to find them, because that's what is. But it's interesting to look back at them and say like, oh, there's like, that is sort of the clunkier folk arty version of like what I'm making now. But I did make a few books. I never found I found the process, like, it's really hard to make a book. Just like, because first you're coming up with the concept and the story, and it's the type, and then it's also the visuals, and then you physically have to make it. So in the program, like, some people have made their own paper, but then you're printing it. In my case, mostly screen printing, and then you're sewing it, and you want to make at least 100. So it just becomes like really tedious.
Right.
So I think I certainly learned sewing skills like while I was in the program, and sort of like attention to detail. But I quickly realized, like, my thesis, I did have a book there, but I actually made life-size screen prints of furniture, and I was wheat pasting them on abandoned buildings throughout Philly. And my
cool.
It was an installation was what I made, and they were really open to whatever you wanted to do. You didn't have to like have a book at the end of it. So so that's also why the program was appealing to me. But then I ended up throwing a piece of fabric that same teacher, Susan Umbenauer, had given to me. She would just like give me some supplies to play around with. And so it was 2-3 years later, I threw it under my screen as I was screen printing one of the chairs that I would do on paper, because normal printmakers, they print on paper.
Right.
So I threw the fabric under there, and I made this like ridiculous looking pillow chair that like just looked so strange, and took up like 10 pounds of stuffing, which is a ton, like a huge box of stuffing. And my mom saw it and she said, I should teach you how to trapunto. And trapunto is the form of quilting where you sew through the front and the back. And actually, I'll just run and get an example.
Yeah.
So this is a sign piece. Is it backwards?
Yeah, but that's okay. We can read it.
This is no stopping anytime. But, and actually this isn't the best example anyway, but trapunto is where you sew through the back and the front.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Like stuffing in between. And often what I'll do too is I take a stitch ripper and I'll rip the back and then I'll stuff from behind to give it more dimension. And so it's kind of like a weird, it's not sculpture exactly, but it does poof out a little bit. And so my mom taught me how to trapunto. And that was 12 years ago, I guess. So I've been doing it ever since then.
Oh my God. So you fell in love with it immediately? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it was I wasn't great at it. I didn't have a sewing machine at first, so I did everything by hand, which is insane. And then my mom also, she bought me a $80 sewing machine from Walmart, and I still use it sometimes, but I did.
Oh, wow.
I did upgrade to a Juki, but yeah, I've basically stuck with fabric ever since then. I really like how it has this sort of like playful quality, so you can do really like serious things, but they become playful when they're soft and tactile and you can touch them, or you feel like you can touch them. People do touch them all the time. I think because we're used to being able to touch fabric. But, and I also like that they store really easily, so I can make a lot of things and just like sort of, like most sculptors, they run out of space really quickly. And I can like I can make huge panels, like the ones that you saw the show at Gallery Madison Park, they're all rolled up almost like rugs or something. I can like roll them and store them. So I do these like big installations that then can get small, which that also really appeals to me. Whereas if I worked in like wood or metal, or even ceramic, I really love clay, but it's just so fragile. Very demanding space-wise.
Right. That's true. I guess, I never thought about that. With fabric, you do get some wear and tear, but not, I guess, if you're storing it properly or whatever.
Yeah, I have little tricks. I have like a steamer if I need it. And yeah, you wrap it around a tube or something to make sure it doesn't, or you just keep them flat. They also like, sorry, that's my dog. You done? She's got a scratch. So yeah, they also they kind of come apart in pieces. So I'm looking at, I'll bring you over there. Let's see if I can do this. Flip you. This is the rest. There's my dog. That's Eleanor.
What's his name?
Oh, that's Eleanor. Yeah.
Eleanor. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this is like a cake piece that I did on a cake stand, but they come apart too. So I can sort of build things and then pack them in a way that they become smaller. And then these are some newer pieces. These are, about our current state right now of objects that I use every day. So this is like my mask that my neighbor made for me. And I wish I had that much Purell, but I don't. And
gold.
I know. So yeah, like that's sort of an example of like, well, it's kind of dark. Like these times right now are kind of dark, but somehow like making them soft and squishy like makes them sort of funny or something, or less serious. And then I do like these would be able to roll up like bigger panels. This one I did a residency at Cooper Union last summer, and my car was towed because I found this so confusing. I parked there Thursday night, and I thought, okay, can't be there Tuesday, Friday. I'll leave by Friday at 10. I'll be fine. But it turns out like Friday at midnight is Thursday night. So anyway, so I was really mad about it, and so I made a stuffy.
Yeah.
And then this would show the trapunto process a little bit better. This guitar, because you can see I ripped the back in order to give it more poof, so that it will have more dimension. And that's Sam's guitar. So I did a whole series where I did pieces that people, things that people had lost and they wish they still had. Mm-hmm. And her mom sold her guitar at a garage sale.
Oh. Without her permission?
She was like in college or something, and I don't know. My ex where my mom threw this away or whatever.
Right.
But anyway, so like I recreated things that people had lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a really great residency in Sweden, and while I was there, they gave me this vintage Elmer sewing machine to work with, and I just could not figure it out, no matter how many YouTube videos I watched. And then eventually I finally triumphed and made that thing work for me. So I recreated my victory sewing machine. And then these are some plant pieces I did for the Philadelphia airport.
Oh, cool.
I recreated the plants that they actually have there.
Oh, nice. Oh, those are huge. They're like bigger than, I'm getting the sense of the scale, like because they're bigger than the doorway, right?
I know I should make my dog go over there for scale, but yeah. They're pretty big. These ones are not screen printed. I painted those, so I kind of do a combo now, depending on what I need. So like the Elna and the guitar are screen printed, and then when I stuff them. But yeah, sometimes I just paint as well. If I only need one of them, I won't. Like for this one, I screen printed the Wendy's 4 for $4 meal, but the background and the table are all painted because I only needed one of those. So yeah, like a little tour of my space.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's great that you have work there that you can show.
Yeah,
I love that you this idea of how you tell stories about these objects, and I was just curious, like how you kind of came to this idea of like looking at objects that people have lost, or the different themes and series that you do.
Let's see. I think that first came from maybe first from that Pepanosorio lecture where making work that involved other people, and I thought that was really interesting to me, because sometimes I think originally I thought artwork was so sort of like self-involved, like about it is very isolating in many ways. You just have to spend a lot of time by yourself making something in order to produce it. But then I also did an internship with a man named Daniel Heyman, and he was teaching me how to do woodblock carving. He was also doing a project where I guess the lawyers who represented the prisoners from Abu Ghraib, do you remember the atrocities at Abu Ghraib that representing them were from Philadelphia. And somehow they knew about Daniel. I don't know if he was friends with them, but he was able to fly out to Istanbul, and with the permission of the people being interviewed, he was able to sit in on the lawyer interviews. He's described it as being like in some hotel room. He just brought like zinc plates with him and was doing drawings like right on the spot, and watercolors, and listening to the translator interviewing them, and just these horrific stories of what had happened to them. I mean, listening to at least completely innocent people that just were arrested for no reason and were then tortured. So, when I learned how to do woodblock carving, I was actually like carving around these like stories that he had heard from these people. And the idea that the lawyers had was that they wanted not only hearing and the trials to go through, but they thought if they had art that came out of this, it could humanize the experience. It wouldn't just be about like legal proceedings. It would have like an even bigger effect. So that was really influential too. Right. The idea of using interviews within your artwork, and so right. That's where I started. I started with doing a lot of themes of home, and I began by interviewing people from Southeast Asia. We have a very big Southeast Asian community, especially near where I am in South Philadelphia, and I was really interested in learning about how they came from. They were all seniors that I interviewed, and how they had this journey from Vietnam and Laos, and how they ended up in South Philadelphia of all places. So I started by going into. They had a weekly juke breakfast, which juke was like this huge beef-based soup. And I would just go to their meetings and hang out and talk to people. And eventually I had 4 people that I interviewed. And it was really enlightening because you learn a bit about the war in Vietnam. You watch some documentaries. It is just so different to talk to someone who grew up there and then lived through the war and then is now here. So I think it really energizes me, and it makes me more interested in the work that I'm making when it is attached to a specific human being. So like most of my pieces are called like that wedding cake is Lisa's gluten-free vegan wedding cake, because there's a whole story behind it. Like they're all like very specific to a story or a person. And actually even for the COVID objects, I'm actually like hoping to get people to tell me about the things that they associate with this time. So I have some people have told me like flour, like bread flour, because they've been baking their own bread, or some like darker things, like I'm actually in the process of recreating some tear gas from the protests.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to do this thing where people can, because like I'm trying to be very good about socially distancing still. I know not everyone's still doing it, but I'm still nervous. So where I'm doing like phone calls with people who want to submit objects. So it's been interesting.
Yeah. So does that, it's fun, you almost seem like a journalist in a way, you know, like you're doing this like investigative journalism and finding these stories, and then do they sort of influence the way that you create the pieces, or?
Like the actual, definitely. I mean,
yeah.
I think the interactions that I have can completely change what it is I thought I was going to make at the beginning, which is interesting. When you're doing this type of work, you have to have sort of like I made those 4 pieces that are from my own little collection of COVID objects as kind of like examples of things that could remind you of this time, but I'm actually much more interested in the person that then tells me it's tear gas. Like that is, I would never think of that on my own. or I don't know. There were a few other ones that I was like, oh, I would never come up with that. That's so interesting. So
Right.
I think it is. I do need like an external motivation, which is usually the person that I'm making the work about. For me, the most exciting thing about making something.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you feel like, I mean, I'm interested, you talked a little bit about like the theme of home, and then you also work with this theme of like loss and displacement, and how did you become interested in some of those themes?
I think the root of it does come from making. I was living in a pretty tumultuous state, which I think most young people are, but also when I graduated from college, my mom had sold our house, so I didn't really have a home base anymore, and I moved into her apartment, but I was kind of like in her like the spare guest bedroom. It wasn't the same as like going home or anything, and then I just moved a whole bunch all the time, and at the same time I remember also Katrina was happening, Hurricane Katrina, and I was really moved by seeing all of these people that just like lost everything, and just the like lack of response from our government. It just was I don't know, like that just seemed much bigger, but I had this like own hurt that I had of losing my house. But that, I think you do need a little bit of that like personal motivation in order to empathize with the with other people. And so I started making work about home right then. And then as soon as I started feeling a little bit comfortable in New York, which is a very hard thing to do, to feel like you have a place.
Yeah.
I was moving again. So it was sort of like, all right, now I'm moving to Philly, and I'm trying to, I didn't know anybody here. So just like it just felt like I kept like breaking things down and building up again, and then breaking them down again. So I think that's how I began the process. And actually, I think I've sort of shifted away from home. I started doing a lot of plants in the last few years, a lot of more like just objects, and even people. I started doing some figurative pieces as well.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Maybe because I actually bought my own home, so I've been in the same.
Yeah, so now you feel more grounded.
I think so. I think there is like sort of by having a lack of stability, you kind of it was almost like playing house, like recreating a space that you could control, that you could like furnish with these objects that roll up really small. And I think there was something there, and somehow having my own place now and feeling more stable at the moment, because I know it can change. You never know. But
right.
I've sort of moved away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting how that works sometimes. Do you think, doing more people, or, what, was that just out of a interest in like the personalities of different people? Do you like pick specific people that you are interested in, or?
Sometimes I pick them. Sometimes they're kind of like picked for me. I did one residency down in Arkansas with the Walton Art Center, where they had me interview people. They're volunteers from their center, which was really lovely. It was like these seniors mostly that live down there. So it was very interesting to hear from people from the South, because like I'd always interviewed mostly people from up here, and they grew up on like legit farms. Like some of them are in like families of 12, where it was like, oh man, chicken slaughter day was just the worst, and like described like killing like 100 chickens and having to like defeather them and stuff and like freeze them. And I was like, wow, I've never heard about this kind of thing before. It was really interesting. Just the differences between being up here and interviewing people. And actually, I've done a lot of, I really enjoy interviewing seniors because of just like their stories are really interesting to me. And a lot of the seniors I've interviewed here, some of them were born in the South and then migrated up here. So those are also pretty fascinating. But I sometimes like I'll learn about something. Like I learned a bit more about Japanese internment camps, and I was like, this is wild. I can't believe this was like a paragraph in my high school history textbook. And I can't believe it happened and that our government did this to its own citizens. And so then I just sought out people that actually lived in internment camps, and then I did a lot of research and I interviewed 4 people that had been in internment camps and did pieces based off of them. And I think those were the first figurative pieces I made, and I don't really have a great answer as to why, but I started having them like holding the objects. So for example, George described his camera, like he saved up to buy a camera, and then unfortunately, and he had his own dark room and everything, and this was this was pre-World War II, so I think it was in the 30s. It was very strange to have a camera at the time. And so the FBI was like raiding people's houses, and his father actually destroyed all of his negatives and all of his photos because he was really scared that the FBI was going to come and think that he was a spy. And the FBI did come and did arrest his father, even though he had like destroyed all of his son's photographs. And so for some reason I had like his arms with his camera that was really happy, his Argus camera. And I started like incorporating like the figure with the object. I don't have a great reason as to why.
I mean, it makes sense. So it was like another part of the storytelling, I guess, right?
Yeah. I guess it's weird to not depict the person in a way.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, it's a different challenge, I guess, too. So, and I know you've recreated like full rooms and things, right? I mean, pretty extensive pieces.
Yeah, usually
are you there? I think.
Yeah, not one person's room, but it might be like a room, and it will have like multiple people's objects within them. And those usually like installations for specific places. So I did one that was for the airport. That was a 40-foot piece. It's now like, I'm really happy it's up at the convention center, which is great. They bought it, they have it. And then I did one, a similar one that was more like big houses, and they were furnished with the different objects like the guitar. And that was at our library. Like we have a really beautiful library with like 22-foot ceilings and stuff. So the rooms, like I generally make them for specific places. So it's almost like I start with the exhibition first, and then I make the piece for the space. And so right now I really should be, I haven't done much for it, but I really should be working on, I have a 14-foot piece that's going to be at the Minnesota Center for the Book, which is actually, it's in Minneapolis. So in some ways I'm happy I procrastinated. It's not due till January. I can do that. But I feel like with all of things that have been going on with George Floyd, like I feel like Minneapolis is a very interesting place to have a show coming up. So yeah, I'll be making we've got 5 minutes. That's what Instagram told me.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they put a limit on it, but that's funny. Yeah.
So that's coming up in January. I need to start.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be fine. But, yeah. It'll be interesting. Sorry?
Oh, it's June, so I've got a little bit of time, I hope.
Yeah. You said that's going to be a 19-foot installation?
I should get those measurements down more, but I think it's actually a really tall vertical piece. So I think it's 5 feet wide, and then it'll be 14 feet high. So it'll almost be like a very tall, narrow piece that I'm going to make.
Okay. Can you say what it is, or do you know yet, or is it? Are you still? Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's I was gonna say, like, it might be influenced too, like you said, everything going on. It might.
Yeah. I mean, it's good in a way.
You said it's good in a way. I don't know if you cut out, but.
I was just going to say it's good in a way to be somewhat flexible, because sometimes I get very fixed on an idea, and then something in the world will happen, and I'll say, oh, I wish I could respond to that, but I have this project I'm already doing. So I'm thinking maybe I can incorporate something with that, with what's going on right now, into the work as well.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know if Instagram's gonna boot us off, but I think the main other thing that I wanted to ask was just if you feel like you have like a mission or vision or any like message that you like to convey through your work, of, you know, what you hope people might feel when they experience your work.
Yeah, I think my hope, well, first of all, is that I'm very interested in stories and people, but I'm also very aware of whose stories are usually told and whose stories are usually listened to. And so I try to get as many, cast a really wide net and seek out lots of different people. And then I hope that by learning about these different people, maybe like you're just like, oh wait, like, oh, there's a story behind this wedding cake, or there's a story behind this tear gas. Like maybe you can learn something or connect with a person that you normally wouldn't necessarily connect with. So that's my hope for the viewer. And also it's a way for me to connect to people as well, and to learn through the making of the pieces. So I think, I think that sort of sums it up.
No, I love that. I mean, it is, your work is very like personal and like intimate in a way, and so that, you know, makes sense. Do you, other than the that commission, and then you're obviously working on the COVID related, and also Black Lives Matter, right? You're looking for story. Oops. I think. Did I cut out for a minute?
Just for a second, yeah. I think those are those are the two major things. I'll do like silly pieces too. I did this piece recently. I haven't posted anything about it, but I made these really long arms. They're like 7 feet long, so that I can hold on to them and do a 6-foot hug. So I visited my mom for the first time this past weekend. I haven't seen her since December, even though she doesn't live very far away. And we've just been trying to be really careful. And so I had the arms like around her, and then I'm holding them on the other side. So it's like this really pathetic, not so great hug.
That's so fun though. I mean, it's unfortunate that, you know, that's where we are, but I think that our internet is cutting out on us Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It like froze for a minute.
Back, but it did say, yeah, it said I had reached my limit. Have you never had that before? I think it has like a hour. It can't have been an hour.
Oh, maybe that's why. Yeah.
I said ignore.
No, yeah, that's why I was like, oh. Yeah. Well, we can wrap it up so that we don't get booted out. But
I think we might have.
No, that was great. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody
have what? Sorry.
I think we have like 10 more minutes. I think it just was like, oh, you're about to get kicked off, and then it popped up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. So it's okay.
It's always like, I feel like technology, you know, I'm still like, I don't know. I don't understand any of it. It has a mind of its own.
Yeah. I'm actually pretty impressed how good the quality has been so far. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think those are like most of my questions anyway. So I just want to thank you again for chatting today, and it was fun to learn more about your work and everything that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of you know, the COVID and the BLM stories. What comes out of that? Are you going to do the pepper spray? Are you working on that? Or?
I'll probably screen print that this weekend. So I was working on the drawings today, which is really weird. I feel like the FBI must have a file on me because I've just been researching like how to buy all these terrible things like zip ties and tear gas, and just to get the imagery for me to be able to draw it, because I can't just make up what tear gas looks like. So I'll do like internet research, and then you look at my search history and it just looks really weird. So.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, hopefully this conversation is proof. It's for art.
Making only stuffy tear gas. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great. I hope that I hope maybe we'll see you in New York or Philly or something when we have more in-person things going on again. So
that'd be great. Well, thanks so much for having me, and meeting your cat.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a good evening.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Bye.